All right.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. We're about to get started here. Excited for our conversation today. You're with WorkRamp and OpenSesame. And of course, our topic for the day is leadership development, the next horizon for enablement. Before we jump in, does anyone want to get popping in the chat? Where's everybody coming in from today? Anyone? Utah? Love it. I'm in Southern California. All right. Well, let us know where you're coming in from. Florida. Awesome. All right. So let's jump in. We have a really great discussion lined up today. My name is Jack Foster. I lead the marketing team at WorkRamp, and I am the moderator for today's session. But the real stars of the show are our two fabulous speakers, Stephanie Madow and Ashley Brown. So I'll just give them a moment to introduce themselves. Stephanie, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role at WorkRamp?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. My name is Stephanie, and I am the Director of Enablement here at WorkRamp. I've been here for, I think, 7 or 8 months now, but was a very happy customer of theirs 2 years prior. I've been in the enablement space dedicated to enablement for, I think, about 5 years now. And prior to that, I did sales operations, deal desk. I've been at really large companies, and then I've been at the small companies too. And small startup is where my bread and butter is for sure. I love the small startup world. So excited to kind of dive into our topic today and provide whatever insights are kind of swimming around in my brain.
Love it. We're excited to chat more with you. And Ashley, please introduce yourself as well.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley Brown. I am coming from Portland, Oregon, so not quite as sunny as Florida or Utah, but I am happy to be here with all of you today. And in my role at OpenSesame, I have the privilege of working with learning and development professionals from a wide variety of organizations across many different industries and many different sizes. So just looking forward to today's conversation and sharing some insights and best practices with everyone.
Amazing. Well, I'm excited to dive in with both of you. We have a lot of great topics to cover, which is a great segue into the slide. So what are we going to talk about today? So of course, the topic, as we already mentioned, is about enablement for leadership. And so our conversation is going to cover, where do you start when you're thinking about building an enablement program for leaders? What are the signals? What are things to be thinking about? So we'll dive into that. We'll talk through how to create a winning formula for engagement. How do you actually get your leaders engaged in the program? So some great insights there that we'll talk through. And then of course, why this is kind of at the forefront for enablement teams today, and why scaling enablement through leadership is going to set your company up for long-term success. So really great topic for us to go through. On the housekeeping side, just want to mention a couple of things. Please put questions in the Q&A as we're going through today's discussion. We will try to answer as many as possible, and anything that we don't get to, we'll be sure to follow up on at the end. And this recording will be available on demand, so you will get a copy of this later this week so that you can watch it again or share it with your teams or whatever you like. So with that, before we dive into the questions, I wanted to actually just set up the conversation a little bit more about the role of enablement and how it's evolving. So we have a couple stats to kick us off. So this first stat really shows how the enablement function is exploding across organizations today. So Steph, we actually stole this from some of what you've been tracking over the course of your career. If you looked for job titles that had enablement in the description or in the title 5 or 6 years ago on LinkedIn, you would see that there was only like 100 jobs that had enablement in the title back then. And if you look today, there's over 4,000 and growing jobs that have enablement in the function or in the title. So this really just showcases that enablement is an exploding function, something that a lot of companies are focused on, and there's good reason for it. There was a report that came out in 2021 called the State of Enablement, or the State of Sales Enablement rather. And it just showcases that enablement and L&D programs are really helping companies get to business results. You can see some of the stats here, improved ability to get to quota on the sales side. This 97% stat, those were respondents that had a formal charter around enablement, said that it has increased their company's ability to get to their sales it's increased their overall success of their company's ability on the sales performance side. So just really great reason in terms of why companies are investing in enablement today. And we wanted to focus in specifically on enablement for leadership because back, over the last couple of years, a lot of enablement leaders have been focused on helping sales carrying reps, with how they can be up to speed. But we're really starting to see a shift that leaders and leadership programs are a big focus for enablement teams today. So we thought it was a great topic because more and more enablement teams are having to take this on. So that's what we're here to talk about. So with that, I will dive in and we are going to hear from our panelists. So the first question I want to ask, and Ashley, maybe we'll start with you on this one, is why do you think this has started to become to the forefront for enablement and L&D teams? What are some of the reasons why leadership programs are just kind of a hot topic right now?
It's a great question. I think really the world has changed, particularly
I think Ashley froze.
Okay, I thought it was me, but why don't we go to you, Steph? We will get back to Ashley
in the last few years, and leaders really need more support now.
Oh no, technical difficulties. Okay, we've all been there. Steph, why don't we go to you and hopefully Ashley can get back in with stable internet and then we'll go to her. So why do you think that leadership development is at the forefront for enablement teams today?
Yeah, no worries at all. So I think one of the biggest things, and maybe Ashley was going to touch on this briefly, was just kind of the great resignation is happening right now. And not only are we ending up losing kind of individual contributors, but we're also losing amazing leaders and managers as well. So not only is it imperative that we keep our individual contributors kind of happy and they see professional development opportunities within their organization, but also managers and leadership as well. So making sure that we really take care of, and I think we talk about this a little bit later in our session today, but this idea that managers and leaders typically in the past haven't seen enablement support. And now it's just well, wait a minute, they act like everybody else is getting enablement support and L&D support. Why shouldn't they as well? So really this COVID post-pandemic COVID era kind of great resignation, I think, is bringing all of this kind of to the forefront of everybody's minds at the moment.
Yeah, no, it's a great insight. And I think it's a great take on it. And I guess it's coming to the forefront after we're going through the pandemic and it's kind of this new era of work. But when you're looking at your own organization, Steph, you've been enablement for a long time. How do you know that it is time to start? Is it always time to start investing in leadership development program? What are some of the signals that you're kind of looking for to know that it's time to really put the pedal to the metal, as they say?
Yeah. I think the biggest just alert is people legitimately raising their hand and being hey, I want some help too. We need some leadership development. We're definitely seeing that even internally, here at WorkRamp, our managers and our leaders are kind of raising their hand and being hey, we could really use I would love some training on this, or I would love some insights on that, or how do I develop myself kind of professionally? When your people are asking for it 100%, you should be listening to that. So making sure that you're hearing directly from everybody and taking that feedback and really putting it into play is very, very important. Looks like Ashley's back now too.
I'm so
Oh no. Ashley, it's okay. Well, hopefully we'll get her back again. But sorry, Steph, what were you? I think you were.
Oh yeah, no worries.
There. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say one of the things that, if they're asking for it, one of the things you can definitely do is just make sure that you start small and then dedicate time to kind of that ongoing thing. I think it's really easy for enablement professionals, L&D professionals to be oh, I have to do this amazing, big, amazing kind of program or initiative when it comes to leadership development, when in reality, we just let's start somewhere. How do you kind of climb a mountain? It's one step at a time. So I think making sure that we're able to let's start with one small little thing and then kind of figure out from there what it looks like and how you can kind of get behind those larger initiatives at scale, essentially.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of a great segue into what we wanted to talk about. So you've you've identified that there's a need in the organization. You want to start small. Can you share maybe some more specific examples of how you've actually started to build a leadership development program from the ground up, maybe from WorkRamp, maybe from some of your other experiences?
Yeah, for sure. I think the first things first is just kind of getting a level set with your managers and your leadership too, of like, okay, like what are like the hair on fire problems? What do we need to address like right now? Like what are most people kind of struggling with? What's going to have like what's the lightest lift with the biggest impact kind of a thing, like the low hanging fruit, whatever like business buzzword phrase you want to use. I think at the end of the day, like a general outline of making sure that you understand what needs to be done and then like in what order should we get those done becomes really, really important. So one of the things that we're thinking about and that I've kind of like experienced at other organizations too is like, okay, let's just get all of the knowledge that's living in people's brains. It's just kind of like regular enablement, everything that's living in people's brains, where if they left would be like gone. Let's get it like down on a document, in a playbook, in like something, like document all of that information first and foremost, and then start figuring out like, okay, where are the gaps? What are we missing? What are some large topics that maybe nobody has kind of that shared knowledge that we need to either identify subject matter experts externally or internally about and kind of like get those. So making sure that you're kind of leveraging internal. I'm very scrappy when it comes to creating content, even in like the leadership development piece of things. So are we able to leverage internal resources to kind of share information and then get feedback from the stuff that you're doing? So like I said, start small and kind of like just start. Like that's the like first and foremost, just start and then gather feedback and be like, okay, is this what we wanted? Is it not what we wanted? And then how do we kind of adjust from there? What kind of levers do we need to pull? Is the whole thing messed up and we need to like go back to the drawing board? Or what does that kind of look like? So I think that's a great spot. Ashley, I think you might be back this time.
I am so sorry. I think I might be having an Xfinity issue. I'm very
Oh, no.
sorry about that.
It's
Very
okay. We're so
frustrating.
happy that you're jumping in. So where we're at right now in the conversation is we were actually just talking through what are some signals that it's time to start investing in a leadership development program within your organization, and then kind of taking it a step further. Where do you recommend getting started? So Steph answered the question. I know you didn't get to hear her answer, but if you want to add on to that, Ashley, we'd love to hear your insights on that as well.
Yes, absolutely. I think before my connection dropped, I was saying that in my role, I have the privilege of working with a wide variety of organizations. And part of what I do is speak with L&D professionals about challenges that they are having with their teams. And so one of the things that I've learned is that sometimes it's too late if you're really starting to notice a lot of the signals. If people are leaving, or if cameras aren't on, or engagement is low in meetings, by the time this is happening, it might be a signal that your culture and climate actually isn't where it needs to be. So the thing that I try to encourage all of the organizations I work with is to be as proactive as possible and really ask people, on a regular basis, how are they feeling? Do they feel like they have the skills they need for their role, but also do they feel like they have the mental capacity and the support that they need to bring their best self to work every day? Because I think now more than ever, we need to be paying attention to both of those things. Do you have the technical skills, but also do you feel supported in every way in your work, because the lines between work and non-work are so blurred?
Yeah, it's a great insight, especially, when you're working with leaders, reminding them that do they have the tools that they need? Do they have what they need to be successful in their role? So I love that insight. One other question kind of around this topic. I think people always love to hear gotchas, like as you're kicking off, what are some things that you might want to look out for, or no-nos, or don't do's, or whatever we want to call them. But you've both worked with a lot of teams. So what are some things that you've noticed as you're starting to invest in a leadership program, things you might want to avoid? And maybe Ashley, we'll go back to you to start this one.
Sure. I think communication is key. So you want people to feel empowered so that they can, do things on their own, that they have the skills they need, that they can grow in their role. But you also want to make sure that communication is always open so that if someone is struggling and they need support, that they know who to talk to, whether that's a leader directly or whether that's a peer or a mentor. We see just even from the attendees here, people are working in a wide variety of locations, and sometimes that's happening even in an individual organization. So I think setting up really clear and consistent communication channels is vital, really, very in today's workforce.
Steph, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think in addition to kind of what Ashley mentioned, and as far as like communication goes, making sure that you actually like do something, like just like kind of start. I think it's really easy to get stuck in kind of analysis paralysis mode, or just like, we'll deal with, like, that's the next quarter, or like next half, we'll kind of like work on that or focus on that. I think more than anything else, like, the larger you let your leadership team grow, the larger the scope is going to become. So if you don't have that foundation kind of built right from the get-go, it's kind of like trying to like dig underneath the house, like the foundation after the fact, which is damn near impossible. So I think making sure that, and it adds like a whole other level of complexity to it too. So I think at the end of the day, like making sure that you don't just like continue to kick that can down the road, like start with something, get feedback, start building, and then adjust and pivot as needed. But just start, just start.
Yes. I think that what I'm hearing, there's a lot of kind of transferable just from, as you said earlier on, Steph, what you're doing for the rest of the team on an enablement front still applies to what you're doing for leaders as well. So good stuff there. Let's go into content and how you actually engage leaders in a development program. So I actually want to kick off with a question. Steph, maybe we'll throw this to you. What are some of the topics that you feel like you end up needing to put in, like common topics that leaders are wanting training and skill development around?
It's a good question. Typically it kind of revolves around like two different buckets. Like there's the people management bucket of like, how do I run effective one-on-ones and how do I help my team grow professionally? And then there's the other bucket of like your business management. So like, how do I run appropriate reports, or how do I work with my manager on certain things? So I think identifying which topics need to be addressed first and foremost. Sometimes the business management topics can be a little bit easier. How do I use the tools that we've got internally best as like a manager? Sometimes those are like lightest lift, but like heavy impact. Like those can be really good ones to kind of start with. And then being scrappy from there, and understanding like, how much bandwidth does my team have, and making sure that it's like relevant to your organization. So you can go on to like somebody's, university, for example, and be like, oh, I can learn all about how to use, greenhouse or lever, like whatever it might be. But is it relevant to like how your business is going to use it? Like, what does your internal subject matter expert kind of look like? So making sure that you make sure that the content is vetted and it's appropriate for kind of like your business and what you want to accomplish.
Yeah, that's great. Ashley, what about you? How do you think about content development when you're developing content for leadership?
Well, I think that hits the nail on the head, making sure that the content is appropriate for the business. I think also taking time to figure out how people learn best, and then making sure that you have the options that will match their learning styles and preferences. And even sometimes thinking about languages. I know one of the benefits of going with an off-the-shelf provider or any content provider is that, if someone wants to learn in their native language, or they want closed captioning, or you want courses, if that are, 508 compliant, you can do that. And then also just thinking about the style and the format. We see a lot of emphasis now on people wanting micro learning opportunities, that people can take things in small bites. I hear the term, we want to make it snackable, so that people aren't asked to make these huge investments in time, and that they can spend, maybe 10 to 15 minutes and still get a great bang for their buck. Also thinking about, do people learn best through hands-on activities? Do they want things that have follow-up resources? How do you make sure that people are engaged if they're taking something on their computer in isolation, maybe having something with built-in activities that are going to remind the learner to stop and apply what they're learning and keep them engaged in the content. I think a lot of little tweaks like that, when if you take them all together, can make a huge difference when it comes to having a meaningful learning opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Steph, I'll throw it back to you because it's kind of an extension. What are some of your strategies for creating engaging content that really, helps leaders learn the skills that they need, meets learners where they are, those types of things?
Yeah, I like to make sure that I'm being like scrappy but thoughtful at the same time. So being able to leverage pre-made content and then adding that layer on top of it, as far as like the relevancy to the business or whatever it might be, like the topic that you're talking to. That's definitely like key when you're kind of creating content, making sure that, I only have, depending on like the size of your team, typically enablement L&D teams are on the smaller side for most companies. So I need to be as resourceful as humanly possible to get the information that is relevant to the topic that I'm trying to train on, and then make it relevant to my learners at the end of the day.
Yeah. And then, this is great. These are great insights in terms of like how you actually create and develop and think about engaging leadership and learners in this content. But how do you measure if it's actually effective and working and, helping the learners get the skills they need, the leadership team get the skills they need? Why don't we start with you, Ashley, on this one?
Yeah, I mean, that can be difficult to do without having some specific data, just because if you're working with a wide variety of people, sometimes it can be difficult to solicit feedback directly. I do think nothing replaces the value of direct feedback from an individual, because that gives you something that's really actionable. But I know that what we do with our customers at OpenSesame is we actually give them insights about the courses their learners are taking, so they can see, what topics are most common, what format is most common. We also have ready-made materials to make it easy to solicit that direct feedback. So we have some pre-built surveys that you can modify. We have a dashboard that if you work with us, it shows you who your most engaged learners are, so you have an idea who to reach out to. I think anything you can do to couple concrete data with feedback that will color the data that you're seeing is great to help you take some next steps and make sure that you're always offering options that are going to be, most agreeable to your learners.
Yeah. Steph, do you have anything you want to add to that one?
Yeah. If you have seen me on like any webinars or like LinkedIn or whatever, I will sing the song all day long. It's just like, define your end goal. So like whatever you're training on, whatever your initiative is, you should always start with like the end goal in mind of like, what do I want my people to like walk away from? And then how do I measure that? And it can depend on, to like Ashley's point, like what type of data is readily available to me in relation kind of to this initiative. Do I need to work? Is it more kind of like how to run an effective one-on-one? Am I grading them on like, is there a role play activity or a certification or something that I want to get them from? Or is it more kind of the sentiment analysis of like, this is how I felt before the training, this is how I felt after the training? Like figuring out like your end goal first and foremost, and then defining it and how you're going to measure that, I think is crucial to the success of honestly like any training, whether it's leadership development or not. And then being able to leverage the tools that you're using in order to kind of like get that information across. So if it's an LMS system, if it's a content provider, and like how many people are watching my content, how long are they spending on it? Are they getting the grades that I want? Are they completing the stuff that I need them to? Making sure that you're tracking all of that information actually makes it relevant, so that when you roll it out again, you can go back to learners and be like, hey, we saw an uptick of X, Y, and Z as a result if you completed this course. And they're like, oh, okay, this is great. Now I can actually get some stuff done. So being able to define that not just for yourself as like an enablement or L&D professional, but for your future learners as well, hugely impactful to build that trust.
Awesome. So let's jump into our final topic for the day, which is, what kind of the whole umbrella of this conversation is scaling enablement through leaders. So we've talked about, when you should start thinking about a leadership development program, how to get started, gotchas, winning content. These are all great things, but why do you think this is important to actually scale enablement through leaders to set your company up for long-term success? And Ashley, why don't we start with you on this one?
Sure. I think people really look to their leaders for guidance and direction when they're thinking about their own priorities and how they should structure their time, how they should structure, how they want to grow. And so scaling through leaders can help emphasize what's important and help enablement teams focus on the concrete skills that they will need. And it will also help to make sure that everyone's really working toward the same goals. If the goals and objectives are coming directly from leaders and leaders have an active role in scaling, I think it helps everyone's work be more cohesive.
Yeah, that all makes sense. And Steph, let's hear from you on this one.
Yeah. So as I kind of mentioned previously too, like enablement L&D teams are typically kind of small. They're small but mighty. Like they can get a hell of a lot done, but we're still tiny. Like we only still have so much bandwidth kind of like at our fingertips. So whether it's kind of from a scale perspective, meaning like we can only be in so many places at one time, especially if you're a global organization, or whether it's from kind of a reinforcement standpoint, making sure that you're working kind of like toe to toe with your managers and like walking in lockstep on a lot of this content really becomes crucial to making sure that you kind of have that sandwich approach for your learners of like, this is important from the manager and like, this is like us, like L&D and enablement on the bottom of just like, yes, this is important, this is why, making sure that we express that impact that the training initiatives can kind of have from both angles is crucially important. So making sure that the managers are on board with it too, and they can communicate the value of whatever it is that we're kind of like walking through at the end of the day. We really do need that support from managers for that.
Yeah. And that's actually, I think the last question I wanted to ask, we did start talking about how you kind of think about effectiveness of content, but what other metrics would you recommend thinking about tracking as you're thinking about the success of a leadership development program specifically? Anything else that you would share with the audience? And maybe Steph, we can start with you on this one.
Yeah, I tend to think that I feel like this has been a really like hot topic lately as far as like metrics go. I tend to think of it in 3 different buckets. So for my metrics, like here internally, like at WorkRamp, I define them in 3 categories. So the accountable metrics, the trackable metrics, and then the sentiment metrics. So accountable metrics are ones that I have some kind of influence over in some way, shape, or form. So I'm going to be able to influence how quickly somebody onboards with our company. Ideally, like this is like ideal state. Trackable metrics are more around KPIs that are maybe a little bit harder to directly correlate to like my impact, but will give me a great pulse check on what's happening within the business and the organization. And then sentiment, as I kind of mentioned earlier, is more kind of the feels, like how did I feel going into this training? How do I feel after the training? It's usually kind of their own self-assessment. And I think combining those 3 elements can really give a really great picture, no matter what training initiative you've got going on, whether it's leadership development or kind of ongoing onboarding, whatever it might be. I think those can be really powerful when combined.
Can you repeat the 3 buckets again, just so that audience hears them again? Yeah.
Accountable metrics, trackable metrics, and then sentiment.
Awesome. Love it. Ashley, let's finish off with you on this one.
Absolutely. I'm really glad that you asked Steph to repeat them, because as she was saying them, I was thinking, okay, this is actually I might use this when I'm speaking with customers, because I think those are really great buckets to use. The only thing that I would really add is that I think engagement is also something to look at when I'm working with the organizations that I support. We really emphasize looking not just around individual courses that are being taken, but topics and themes, and looking at trends, thinking about how learning is changing changing month over month, if there's certain times of year where it increases or decreases, if people are heading into a period that's going to be really busy and work heavy, how can you support them before that starts? How can you make sure that you're offering training in a timely way so that you're offering it when the appetite is really the greatest for it? So a lot of what I do is help the customers I work with look critically at that data to make sure that their learners are engaged and that they're focused on those relevant topics at the right time.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for a really amazing discussion. We're going to head into Q&A here for in a minute, but I wanted to just share, we're going to do a couple of slides about WorkRamp and OpenSesame. So at WorkRamp, we're thrilled to be working with some of the most innovative companies out there. Here's a couple of the amazing customers that we work with, and the customers that we're working with, they really think about learning as a growth engine. We've talked so much today about the impact that learning can have on an organization. When you enable your teams, they are really set up to become unstoppable. Sales teams are able to exceed revenue targets. Having the right L&D programs in place really can help you attract and retain top talent. If you think about enabling your customers and customer education, if you get your customers up to speed on your products and technology and show them value quickly, they're inspired to become brand advocates for you. So all of these learning experiences are powered by WorkRamp, and there are three main reasons why customers choose to work with WorkRamp. The first is that we are an all-in-one learning platform, so you're able to deliver learning at scale and training at scale across your employees, customers, and partners. There's no need to have different solutions to do that. You can do that all within WorkRamp. And we're very proud of our partnership with OpenSesame. Also gives you the opportunity to have off-the-shelf content so that you're not having to start your training materials from scratch. We have a huge focus on partnership with our customers. We want to give our customers the tools and resources they need to be set up for success. So we have everything from implementation services, customer success resources, as well as a VIP customer community where you can connect with other leaders and share best practices in the space, networking, all of that good stuff. And then we're dedicated to delivering best-in-class products. We really take the feedback we get from customers to help shape what we're going to build. We are known for our beautiful UX and UI. We have extensive integrations, and of course, we're helping teams tie their learning initiatives to business outcomes. So if you're interested in learning more about WorkRamp, visit our website. We'll also be sending more information after this. And Ashley, I'll put it over to you. I'll send it to you to just talk a little bit more about OpenSesame.
Perfect. Yes, we are privileged at OpenSesame to partner with over 150 of the world's top content publishers. So we can really offer what we believe is the most comprehensive library of learning and development options. We currently have over 25,000 courses in our OpenSesame catalog, and that number is growing every day. And anytime a new course comes into our marketplace, our existing customers have access to that course. And so you make an investment that grows over time. One of the biggest benefits, however, of partnering with a provider is not just the options, but really the services we provide. Obviously, nobody has time to go through thousands and thousands of courses to find the right options. So we have a curation team that is made up of a group of subject matter experts in areas like compliance, technology, general leadership. And these members of our team hold relationships with our publishers and meet with them regularly every month to review the topics they're offering, requests from our customers, and trending themes in their specialty areas. And that team is also available to do customized course mappings for anybody that we work with. So you can come to us and say that you're looking for skills around a particular topic, or that you're looking for, a comprehensive mapping that aligns with your performance development objectives or your company's mission and vision. And those services are all complimentary. And if you don't mind going to the next slide, what you'll see there is an overview of our main focus areas. And this is actually ever evolving based on what is most important to our customers. For example, diversity, equity, and inclusion and wellness are two of the newer areas that we've added really in response to growing demand over the last few years. And so as our customers' business needs evolve, our topic areas will evolve as well. And all of these areas are actually available. You can see any of our courses on our website, and they're organized into these 8 main areas that you see in orange. And then you can see just a few of the subcategories that are available with each of the main focus areas. It was just all that would fit on one slide. And then finally, if you go to the next slide, I already mentioned a little bit about our curation services and the value that comes from having course variety, whether that's language variety or style or course length. But we also work with any learning management system. And we have a fantastic support team that's available both to your L&D team, but also directly to your learners. So it's very rare that we have an issue that would come up with one of our courses, but if that does happen, we're always ready and willing to support our customers in real time. And just like our curation service, that's complimentary as well. And so we hope that everyone that we work with isn't just getting the great content that we have to offer thanks to our amazing publishers, but also a really strong partnership to really make a difference for your learners. So, feel free to send questions in the chat. I think we're actually going to Q&A next, and would love to answer anything.
Yeah, let's go into Q&A. Thank you for that overview, Ashley. So let's see. There was a question, maybe we can just put it out for the audience though, just to talk about this a little bit more. So micro learnings, we talked about that as kind of an engaging strategy, when you're creating content and trying to get any type of learner engaged, not just leadership. But the question that came in from Alex is micro learnings are all the rage, but how do you think about a long-term learning journey? Steph, why don't we go to you? I know you already answered this in here, but why don't we go to you to answer this for the whole audience?
Yeah. So I mentioned, I don't think of the two as separate. I think they should be intertwined together. So when you're crafting a learning journey, I think that micro learning should absolutely be a part of those. So I think the example that I gave is maybe if you're working on a leadership development path overall, you can incorporate elements of tips and tricks from managers or leaders, or maybe even little bits that you're getting off of the internet or something like that from the external side of things, and combine that then with longer, maybe once a quarter, once a month, depending on the needs of your business, ILT or instructor-led trainings for maybe an hour or 90 minutes, whatever kind of that cadence looks like. So I think the two, in my opinion, should be kind of really closely married together.
Awesome. I'm not sure, Ashley, if you want to add anything to that as well.
No, I completely agree. Microlearning can be a great thing to use to get to plant an idea that you'll maybe build on in a later session. It can be a great follow-up. It can be a great boost if there's something that's a little bit more complicated that you want to chunk into different sections. But I agree, thinking holistically about what your objective is and all the different ways you can accomplish it. Microlearning is certainly a great tool, but not the only tool in your tool belt.
Awesome. I know we kind of covered this in the beginning, but I think it's worth repeating. Maybe we'll start with you, Steph, on this question. What are some of the topics, again, that you're really seeing come up for leadership development programs? What are some of the main topics that you're feeling like leaders really want training and upskilling around?
It's a good question. I think a lot, kind of Ashley mentioned before, was I think we're seeing a lot post kind of pandemic is how do I be a better people manager, a better human manager? So really diving into more of that kind of emotional intelligence and how do I support my team from that perspective versus just how do I get my team to hit their number? It's how do I holistically support the people that are kind of under my employ? I think those are definitely topics that are starting to come up more and more frequently. I remember one of the companies that I was at, I was meeting with leaders on a fairly regular basis. And one of the first conversations that I had with them was all around supporting their team and whatever. And then I was like, and what do you guys need? What do you need from kind of your perspective as managers? And they just kind of sat back for a second. They're like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, how do I support you as a person, as a manager, as a leader? I don't know. I've never been asked that question before. So I think to this point, on our main topic around leadership development is ask them, because it's very possible that they may not have been asked before. So you might get those different kinds of things. You could brainstorm with your executive leadership all day long, but actually listening to frontline managers and what they're struggling with and what they need help with can really kind of open up the curtain quite a bit.
Yeah, I love that. Ashley, do you want to add anything to that?
I just emphatically agree that in the past, people were not as concerned. I think the softer skills were viewed as nice to have once you had all of the technical skills that you needed. And now what we're seeing is that the organizations that are the most successful are not considering those emotional skills, the skills to be able to communicate and connect and care for and inspire your teams. Those actually aren't nice to haves. Those may be even more valuable in some circumstances than the technical skills, because you can always learn how to use a program. You can always learn how to complete a task. But if you don't feel supported in the role that you have, you're going to start looking for something else. And so I think it's important that everyone recognizes that shift and then takes the steps they need to make sure that they are as strong as they can be in those emotionally intelligent areas.
Awesome. Another question that came in, going back to the 3 buckets of measurement here. So the question is, what are some of the specific metrics you use in the accountable and tracking buckets? And I think, Steph, this is a question for you.
Yep. So typically what I'm tracking when it comes to like accountable metrics specifically. So a good one is like onboarding as an example. So like time to first deal, time to second deal, time to quota attainment, those normal kind of like ramping metrics that enablement defines. Those are ones that I would argue all day, every day that like enablement can have an influence on directly on kind of like that impact for that one. When I talk about trackable metrics, which can be a little bit trickier to kind of correlate to enablement L&D kind of support, I'm going to be looking at things like customer churn is going to be probably like one of them. Like I maybe I have like an influence over there. Like if we have a really great customer journey, we might be able to do that, but that's going to tell me like, are we pulling in the right people at the top of the funnel, and are we kind of supporting them throughout their customer journey? What's their implementation look like? That's going to give me some trackable things that I can just kind of put my finger on the pulse of that. A couple of other ones too are like leads to meetings. So are BDRs getting meetings on the calendar? Are they actually turning into closed opportunities, like closed won opportunities? Or are we missing out? Are we losing more opportunities than we're closed wanting? Again, you can make some correlation there between like enablement, support, and impact, but sometimes it's like, are we going after, like, I would work with somebody like Jack on our team, like from a marketing perspective, are we prospecting to the right people? Are we getting the right leads in the pipeline? And then are we able to kind of like nurture those throughout? It's coming from a very sales enablement like lens here, but those are some of the ones that I'm going to be looking at that are going to be less easier to attribute to my direct kind of influence. Hopefully that helps, Alex.
Awesome. I think that's it. Are there any other questions from the audience? All right. Well, thank you so much, Ashley and Steph, for a great discussion. I know we covered quite a bit today on a variety of topics, and hopefully everyone is walking away with some actionable tips and insights. So thank you all for joining. And as we said, this will be available on demand, so we'll be sure to get it in your hands. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Everyone.